Skull and Bones is an upcoming title from Ubisoft, where players can take the mantle of a ship captain in the Indian Ocean during the golden age of piracy. Originally revealed in 2017, this game has been stuck in what seems like development hell for the last 11 years. And after witnessing the rapid changes taking place throughout development in various trailers, gameplay showcases, and now the open beta, this game is a far cry from what it could have been and what it was showcased as. Today I want to talk about this game's development and why even before it's released, this game is sunk before setting sail. Skull and Bones was first unveiled to the world at E3 2017. We were shown a cinematic trailer followed by the game's creative director Justin Farron on stage explaining what the game will be. Farron sets out a world where players can group up or go it solo in the Indian Ocean in the 18th century. Players can loot, hunt and betray their fellow pirates in order to become the pirate lord of the Indian Ocean. After showcasing this world, we're then shown one of the 5v5 gameplay modes, Loot Hunt, which sets player against player in a Rainbow Six style hero shooter. While not a completely original idea, taking the best elements of naval combat from Assassin's Creed and the competitive gameplay from Siege, it was still a refreshing new IP from Ubisoft that genuinely had myself and others interested. And with the release date set for the later half of 2018, I was eager to see what this game had in store. So it's just before E3 2018 and it's now the cracks start forming. In May that year, Ubisoft announces that Skull and Bones will be delayed to 2019/2020 fiscal year, stating they wanted to give Skull and Bones more time to develop for a more engaging experience. They then showed us more gameplay which expanded on the open world aspect of the game, and now it's starting to look really good. Like, I was actually getting more interested by this, an open world, RPG style sandbox pirate game. So fair enough, a single delay, and it's already looking like this. It should be great by the new release. And then 2019 rolls around, and we don't just get another delay, we get two. The first coming in May of that year, stating that it wouldn't be releasing until after March 2020, with the devs saying they wanted to focus on quality. Then by October the same year, we get another delay, alongside heaps of other games because of poor sales of the newly released titles Ghost Recon Breakpoint and The Division 2. Now Skull and Bones is releasing sometime after April 2021. At this point, the quote, "a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad," is floating in my head, and it's now making me think back to Duke Nukem Forever. I personally slowly became less interested in this game until it basically faded from my memory, and even after these 3 delays, there will be another 5. From May 2021, it will be announced that it was delayed to between April 2022 to May 2023. With Chief Financial Officer Frederic Duget stating the additional time would allow the team to deliver on its vision. Then in July 2022, the new confirmed release date was now November 8th, the same year. That was until September of 2022, the game was once again pushed back to March 2023, following on from a closed technical test the same month. Ubisoft Singapore took on player feedback regarding the progression being shallow, and decided to push the release back to implement the required changes to the gameplay loop. With 2 more delays happening in 2023, we finally arrive at the release date of February 16th, 2024. A whopping 6 years late from its original release date in 2018. And after playing this open beta recently, I came away asking myself what the hell happened. This game has seemed to regress from what was shown 7 years ago to something that feels outdated and not particularly fun to play. What was this development hell that Skull and Bones was stuck in? Let's first look at who Ubisoft Singapore are. Founded in 2008 as a support studio, Ubisoft Singapore assisted with games such as Prince of Persia and Ghost Recon. Then in 2012, they assisted in building a system that they would specialize in, the naval combat and water systems for Assassin's Creed 3. They've worked on pretty much every Assassin's Creed title since, further honing the specialization in particular with Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It was around this time that Singapore wanted to work on something bigger, rather than just acting as a support studio. They wanted their own flagship title. That's when development of Skull and Bones began in 2013. Managing Director of Ubisoft Singapore, Daryl Long, understood that this was a major step for the studio and understood the challenges they faced. There is nothing in the video game industry that's harder than building a new IP, but you're really in many ways discovering it as you go and finding out what resonates with your players. you need time to explore that. Creative director Justin Farron, who got the ball rolling with what Skull and Bones would be, gave us the version we'd seen in 2017. However, Farron was also making preparations to leave in 2019. And without his vision and direction, the game would need a worthy replacement. Farron was eventually replaced with Elizabeth Pellon, a 20-year veteran of Ubisoft Paris, who sought to expand on what was shown and change the game from its arena-style combat style of gameplay to expanding the open-world sandbox aspect. That small segment of map that was shown in 5v5 was all that was built for the game's open world when the decision was made, so the team had a lot of work on its hands. Under Pellon, the game would slowly bloat with more features and expanding its open world, which on paper seems like a great idea. However, it meant that the game was constantly being reworked and changed and ripped apart over and over again. Originally, the game was supposed to have this arena multiplayer mode and a comprehensive single-player campaign, but all of that was removed following the desire to build an open-world multiplayer sandbox instead. Pellon effectively rebooted the game's development multiple times to refocus their efforts. With all this happening internally, the game was pushed further and further back from its original release date, and even with multiple closed technical tests and betas, the player base was still providing feedback that needed to be worked on, often described as a confused or shallow experience from what people were expecting. After this, Ubisoft Singapore would lose Pellon in September of 2023, meaning that another creative director was brought on board to essentially finalize the development for early 2024. And then, just to add on top of all of this, there were multiple issues throughout its development cycle that really did not help. The biggest being the outbreak of COVID in 2020, effectively changing how the studio could work on its premiere title, and definitely presented its own reasons for delaying the game. There were also multiple investigations into workplace harassment at Ubisoft in general, leading to a shakeup of upper management and development teams all across the company, including the managing director of Ubisoft Singapore, Hugues Ricoeur. And to top it all off, the release of the new generation of consoles led the team to having to pause all development of the game for 6 months so that they could shift attention to porting it to the new PS5 and Series consoles. 11 years of development hell, changing management, rebuilding everything from the ground up multiple times. It's no wonder that this game's been pushed back to at least 7 times. But after all this time, how does the game stack up now to how it was originally showcased in 2017? So, with my recent experience with the closed beta and the open beta, how do I think this game stacks up? In my own personal opinion, there are some really questionable changes made to this game since we first saw it in 2017 and 18. First of all, just simple things like the UI and camera view from the ship. The UI seemed a lot cleaner, easier to read, had some nice colour, and generally seemed a lot more informative. And having the camera at the helm rather than above the ship, I think is a lot better. More immersive, and you still have the option of viewing the overall area with the crow's nest. Even the graphics at this point are looking pretty good. Granted, of course, it's a Ubisoft game, so graphics in the trailers are mostly a lie, but still. This is the Skull and Bones that got me interested. But then things start to shift further along in development we get. In the most recent beta we had, which came out 11 days before release, we're greeted with this almost final product. The graphics look terrible. The sound design sounds like it was recorded 10 years ago, because it probably was, and the ship combat just feels way too arcadey and not that comprehensive. I mean, look at the character design for these player characters. The hair and clothing textures look so smeary and unfinished, and it's not because my graphics are turned down. This is on high graphics quality. The water looks like jelly, the fire looks like a 90s animated GIF sometimes, and it just gives off a vibe of an unfinished product even 11 years later. And the fact that there's no on-foot gameplay, like at all, other than walking around ports collecting missions and supplies, makes it feel quite pointless even giving us a player character. We might as well have just had the ship be our customizable character. Everything is just a fade out instead of an animation or something that would exude some sort of quality. There's no boarding, no on-foot combat or exploration, and the way you gather provisions and materials just looks so stupid and awful. It's a pointless minigame. Granted, the sailing mechanics and general feel of controlling your ship is fine, and is only slightly modified to how it feels in Black Flag, it's still nothing to write home about though. I mean, when you look at this game, does this scream to you that this was a game that was releasing in 2024? Or are you with me and this looks like something we could have had 5 years ago and think, it looks okay. I mean, everything about this game feels like it got lost throughout its development cycle and its multiple creative directors. The shifts in how the game was going to be played and the overall feel of it just makes it feel confused. I don't think this game is terrible for everyone. I mean, all you have to do is look at some of the posts on the Skull and Bones subreddit, and there are people positively gagging for this game, although I do think some of them are huffing serious hopium. However, I don't think that this is a game worthy of a $70 price tag. And I don't think that this is a game that's benefited from having all this extra development time, whether they wanted it or not. The general gameplay loop of docking with a port, finding a contract, sail out, blow up a ship, sail back, rinse and repeat is fine, but it's going to get boring quite fast. There's no real options to explore, no alternative systems for earning money and reputation. It feels completely stripped down to a core element of gameplay, and they left it at that. Not being able to board ships and have some mechanic of ship-to-ship combat like that makes it feel dull. Instead, it's just a throw your grappling hooks minigame and then a blurry cutscene. There's no real strategy to be employed here, just whoever is the biggest and more powerful ship wins every time. And all this just pulls the game down in my opinion, and it's probably the result of having the game rebooted over and over again with different directors with different visions. By the time they put this beta out, I would have thought there would have been something else to this game than what we just have now. And I'm sure some of you are going to say, well, this is a beta, it's just going to be better on release, really? Really? Is it? This is 11 days from release and you think they're going to add a whole new elements and vast changes in that time? No! They're fixing small bugs and sending it on its way. Doesn't exactly fill me with hope for this game's legacy. So how's this game going to perform after release? Personally, I don't think it's going to play out particularly well unless some serious changes are made. There should be serious consideration about the role of on-foot gameplay and what could be done to change it, from just being about grabbing supplies to it actually serving a larger purpose. And we all know that the game is a service-style game from Ubisoft that's going to have its seasons of content, but they need to make it feel like it's worth it, because at the moment the gameplay loop is just a little lacking. The open world is more or less a collection of ports to collect missions from, a vast ocean filled with ships to blow up in exceedingly simple combat, and a series of unexplorable land masses. There's no value in exploring, a dull boarding mechanic, and no possible alternative routes to do a mission, and it's gonna get boring really fast. If you still like the look of this game, then that's your business. I'd love to hear what you think. But for me, this game went from an interesting new IP to a dull cash grab in the span of 6 years. I think at this stage, Ubisoft were ready to pull the ripcord and just get this thing out to consumers. They couldn't exactly cancel it because of their contract with the Singaporean government. But what do you think? Are you interested in what this game's future holds? Or are you just done with Ubisoft altogether? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.